Paige, we're going to start with you today on Southern Standard on sports, and we appreciate you and CJ taking the time to be here. And I highlighted some things, but can you give us an overview, a nutshell of your swimming career and the awards and the accolades that you gathered?
I started swimming when I was 9 years old for recreation, but I found out at a young age that I had a little bit more in me than just being an average recreational swimmer. At the age of 14, I won the U.S. Nationals. I was the youngest swimmer to ever win, and still am the youngest swimmer to ever win U.S. Nationals. And from there, it just kind of progressed forward. I made my first international trip actually at the World's Fair in Knoxville. We swam against the Russians, where I won my event. And then from there, I went on into college at the University of Florida. And then at my time at the University of Florida, I went to the Olympics for swimming, where I won a bronze medal.
That's all? That's pretty good.
Well, there's a lot along the way, but
no, that's excellent.
That's a nutshell.
That's good. And CJ, how about you in terms of your athletic career to this point? You know, you can highlight, you know, if you want to pick up game, you know, over at Bobby Ray, or, you know, just, you know, middle school, high school.
Yeah, so I started playing football when I was like 5 or 6, and actually my dad, you know, the first sport he put on me was baseball. And speaking of people trying to get me to play baseball again, on that, my first sport I ever played was baseball, and started playing football when I was 6. And my mom and dad always held me at a higher standard to push myself more than the other kids, because they just knew I had it in me. And when I got in middle school, I sit out my 6th grade year because sixth graders usually didn't play. And before that, I was playing baseball, and I broke my shin. I was a pitcher, and I snapped it in half, so I had to have surgery on that. So I took a year off, which was my 6th grade year. And then Coach Caleb Northcutt, he came and told me to play football, so I started playing football again. And then my knees were popping in and out of place when I'd make cuts because I was a running back. So then I had knee surgery my freshman year. And then I was told that I wasn't going to play until my junior year. So kind of stuck with me a little bit, so I pushed a little bit harder. And I'm here. Played my junior year, played my senior year in week 5 against Blackman. I had a pretty good game. I rushed for 309 yards.
Yep.
And then that's when everybody started talking about Mr. Football. I didn't think about it until then. So that's me.
It's made a big difference in the history of Warren County Pioneer football and basketball. And it's been, you know, of course, exciting to watch. And I want to go back a little bit and start with you, Paige. How were you chosen to be on the Olympic team?
In the sport of swimming, you have to make a certain time standard in order to go to the Olympic trials. And once you get to the Olympic trials, in my event, which was the 100-meter freestyle, there were 48 girls competing for 4 spots. And so everybody swims in the morning, and they take the fastest 8 times, and those girls swim again at night. And then out of those fastest 8 times, whoever puts their hand on the wall, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, goes to the Olympics.
So would you have been considered, was this like freestyle?
Yes, sir.
And would you have been considered at that point in time one of the 4 fastest freestyle swimmers in the United States?
Yes.
That's pretty impressive.
Yes.
So they knew. I mean, your speed, the numbers spoke for themselves. You went through all the competition.
Yes.
To get there.
And once you get to a certain level of swimming and travel the world, it's one thing swimming has done for me. It's taken me around the world. All of the same athletes travel basically to the same meets. And so you learn, you know, different, you know, people from other countries and stuff like that with swimming, and you kind of feel each other out, so to speak, on who's, you know, who's where and who's what.
In that process, were you like 9 years old, in high school? When did you start thinking, I'm going to be on the Olympic team?
Probably when I won the nationals at the age of 14. I tried for the Olympics when I was 15 years old, and I psyched myself out when I got up on the block. You know, swimming my event, I swam way too fast in the first half of it and died like a dog in the second half. Had I tied my best time, I would have made the Olympics in 1984. But I spun my wheels and took myself out of the race before I ever dove in the water, just from being nervous.
So that it was a learning experience, and it was like sort of going up the rung of ladder of competition. You were learning as you went on, and you kept hitting that mark each time you advanced in age. Hey, I'm beating
Correct.
my peers. I'm one of the best.
Right.
That's
and
a great feeling.
Yes. And so by the time the 88 Olympics rolled around, I kind of knew a little bit more of what to expect, you know, at Olympic trials
Where were those Olympics?
in Austin, Texas, the University of Texas.
The U.S., the 88 Olympics?
The 88 Olympic trials were in Austin, Texas. The
Where-
88 Olympics were in Seoul, South Korea.
Okay. If you can, how old were you at that time?
19.
Wow. Take us back. You're competing. Is it the relay team?
Yes.
Which number were you on the relay team?
I swam second.
And when you all won that medal and got to get up there and receive that medal, can you describe what that felt like to you?
It is just an incredible feeling to know that you are representing your country, you've gotten up there and you've competed against the best in the world, and you came out third. You know, out of all the other countries in the world, out of all the other swimmers in the world, I was on a relay, so me and my teammates were the third fastest at that point in the world.
That's the highest. I mean, the highest point you can get as a swimmer, right?
Right, yes.
And what were you thinking? What's my life going to be like after that? If I can get to McMinnville, that's the next height, right?
Well, I was a sophomore at the University of Florida at that time, and so I had 2 more years at the University of Florida. And being an NC2A swimmer, you're not allowed to accept money or do any promotional type stuff for your sport or for yourself because you are an NC2A swimmer. So we were not allowed to do the endorsements and the things that came our direction. So
Wow. That's a good heads up for you, CJ. 'Cause
Well, that-
when I mean Johnny football stuff, you're going to Vanderbilt, getting sponsorships, getting paid. You know.
That changes in like 2 years, a year and a half.
yes, it does. It actually does.
So you can get money now. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And they changed it in the Olympics too. They now pay their athletes.
Unfortunately, CJ's not getting paid for being here today.
No.
But CJ, when you said earlier that was the Blackman game when you first started hearing Mr. Football talk, but when did you really think, I want to be Mr. Football, or I want to achieve that? Was it in your vision, your goals before that Blackman game?
I don't think I could say that it was in my goals, like on my goals list. I don't think it was. My first top goal was to play. When I had surgery, it was just getting back on the field and getting my body in the right state of mind to go. So.
And I remember back before the season started, something that Coach Turner's beat us both up on. When I asked you what your goals were for the season, you
Yeah.
said 6-4.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, you're better than 6-4, this team. And there's something different here about you and Paige. You're on a team sport. Paige has chosen an individual sport, but she also competed as a team in college and high school, probably. We'll find out about it, and in the Olympics. Now, you started hearing a lot of words and a lot of talk
Yeah.
about this Mr. Football thing. And it's sort of new. How does that get selected? Who really knows? And at first, you were chosen as a Mr. Football finalist.
Semifinalist.
Semifinalist. And then, what did you think?
I mean, at that time when I got selected as a semifinalist, it was just coaches. They select people out of the state to be a part of that group of the semifinalists, and there's 5 in the semifinalists and 3 in the finalists, and then that's whenever you go to
Right.
the Tennessee Titans Stadium and they select the winner.
And
So-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when all that happened, it was just I looked at the stats and I was pushing myself to bigger standard. I was just pushing myself mentally and physically to be better than the guys that I was going against, and I think it had an outcome on the season where it made me become a better player because I knew what was up for task. I knew what was up, so I just.
Now, this COVID-19 really changed things.
Yeah.
This past season, because one, there were no summer camps you could go to.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of scouting. It was all digitally, people looking at film. But when that Mr. Football award, when you were a semifinalist and then a finalist, did you start hearing from colleges more?
Yeah, I got my first offer from Tennessee Tech after the first game of the season, which was DeKalb County, and I had a pretty good game. And then after the Tennessee Tech offer happened, it was gradually, started picking up. And then my first big offer was Mississippi State, and I can't remember. I think that was before the Rockville game, which was week 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I won Mr. Football, I got the Vanderbilt offer right then, as soon as I won it.
That's a nice payoff.
Yeah.
So if we can, just for a minute, you may be aware of this or not, but of course you know that they limited who could go to the Mr. Football game, and I've been to that in the past, and it's pretty impressive when you got a whole room and the Titan cheerleaders are there and all this, and but you went down there, a select group. Your mom was with you.
My mom, Coach Hearn, Coach Bond.
And what did you think before they announced the winner? What were you thinking?
I was just in a room, in a group. It gives me chills thinking about it because there's a bunch of kids that I've never seen before in the state, and if you're there for a reason. So I couldn't be mad if I didn't get it, and I mean, everybody was there for a reason. So at any time, and anybody in that circle, I would love for them to be on my team. It was just shocking to walk up against on that stadium or on that podium and just win it. It was just shocking. It was just.
Yeah, and you had some sunglasses on or some glasses that day, right?
Yeah, it kept fogging up because I had the mask on.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, at that moment, did you feel like I'm the dude?
Yeah.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, when I got that, I felt like I was the best player in the state. But
well, the one distinction for people to know, there are 6 classifications. You played in the largest classification, and you were chosen as the best of the best in the state, in the biggest classification. And then you won the award. Was it like you were on the way home, you got a call from Vanderbilt, or was it the next day?
So I'm trying to so I got the offer before. So it was when I was a finalist, I got selected to be a finalist, and I got the call and I got the offer. So then I committed 3 days after. And then so my bad, I'm mistaken on that one. I got the offer, and then after I won Mr. Football, that was when because after you get an offer, you talk for a little bit, and then talks kind of calmed down a little bit. But after I won Mr. Football, that was when everything started picking up.
Yeah, and so you had a big decision to make after that award. And how long after that award did you start playing basketball, or were you playing basketball then?
No, I started playing basketball after that.
So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
In the C.J. Taylor world, there was not a lot of time to get. Usually, a town might bring you into a big dinner, parade, or anything. Who knows what? You didn't get that.
No, after I won it, me, Coach Turner, my mom, and Coach Bond, we went to High Point. But yeah,
That's nice. Yeah. And Paige, when you won your award, there is a ceremony at the end where all the Olympic athletes make their parade and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So did you get a lot of love and stuff? You felt like
From our team and stuff like that, yes.
Yeah.
We were over in Seoul, South Korea, and you have the stadium and everybody cheering. And it is just an incredible feeling to know that you've done that. It, like he said earlier, gives you chills and stuff like that. It just gives you chills to know that what you have achieved.
the people, when you came back home and you got that bronze, medal, did they start treating you differently?
No.
They did?
No, I was at the University
I'm
of
not
Florida.
talking about your family, but
I was at the University of Florida. Yes, there was a little bit of hoopla and stuff like that from the media and stuff like that because I was one of 7 Gator swimmers that was at that Olympics, as well as 4 track athletes were there as well. So there was a lot of hoopla around all of us when we came back. But was I treated necessarily any different? No. My coach was very nose to the grindstone. We have
Mitch Ivey?
NC2As coming. Randy Reese. We have NC2As coming. That's what we're focusing on.
Wow. Well,
So.
can you hold up that interview magazine? Because as an Olympic swimmer, they featured a lot of Olympic athletes, and you were featured in there, right, with an interview.
Yes.
We'll put that picture up, hopefully in the show here. But that's quite a spread there. I mean, was your phone ringing off the hook after that? The guy's going, "Hey,
Well,
in
again,
Gainesville? Did they find you in Gainesville?"
yeah. Well, that was taken actually out in Colorado Springs, but again, with the NC2As, you're not allowed to do any of that. So
What date?
no. Oh, you mean for
Yeah, the
as far
guys
as
in
dating?
Gainesville.
No,
No.
no.
They didn't change
I was a
that.
swimmer, nose to the grindstone.
Well, CJ.
We only hung out with swimmers. We didn't hang out with.
Yeah, you were in the
other
elite
people,
crowd. So
you know.
you're one of the elite.
Yes. Well, I was training 7 hours a day, so there wasn't a whole lot of extra time.
I think CJ finds some time after training, after hours sometimes. But CJ, when you won the Mr. Football Award, did you feel like people started looking at you differently, like a sports reporter at the Southern Standard? Did he start, bowing down and giving you, not worthy stuff? Did you get any of that?
I don't know if I got treated differently. There was always that little buzz around. Like when you walk into an arena or walk into a stadium, the eyes are on you in a little way, like in a way. So I guess I got looked at a little different or treated a little different. But when it came to my coaches, it was always,
Well,
we're here for a reason.
Well, as we know, in the it was the region when you played East Hamilton.
The region semi, the region
Yeah,
semis.
somebody on East Hamilton's team said, "Well, you might be Mr. Football, but you're not Mr. Basketball."
Yeah,
And then you scored 21 points the next quarter.
yeah,
Some people will probably use it against you sometimes.
yeah.
And you're gonna, and it's somewhat human nature. When you're on top, people want to bring you down.
Right.
You felt some of that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. You have any personal experience with that?
Well, yeah, there was a girl on my own team that tried to intimidate people. Like before a swimmer goes, and you'll see it at the Olympics this summer, a swimmer will go up and splash themselves with the water because the water is 72 degrees, which is freezing for a swimmer, for any person. But we'll go up and splash ourselves with water. Well, a girl on my team, she would go splash herself with water and then she'd get a mouthful of it and she'd go spit it in your lane. It's kind of like an intimidation type thing,
Yeah.
I mean, she wouldn't do it to us, but she would do it to other
Don't give
people.
CJ any. It's too late for CJ. That'd been some good stuff. He could do
So.
some of that stuff on the basketball court. Or he may go do it when he's at Vanderbilt.
Nah.
But so Paige, can you tell us about the recruitment that you went through when you were in high school?
Mm-hmm.
Can you highlight? Were you on a high school swimming team, or what kind of swimming team? And when did the colleges come knocking?
I was on a high school swimming team. I was also on a United States swimming team, which was just my club team in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It was a member of the USS Swimming, which is United States Swimming. I started getting letters in the mail from colleges probably when I was 15. I was probably a sophomore, almost a junior. The Division I schools can't talk to you until a certain date, in the summer after your junior year. They can start talking to you and stuff like that. Even at the big swim meets that I would travel to, all the college coaches are there, but they really can't approach you at that point. But once I became a senior, I started getting calls from all over the United States, from different schools and stuff, and I had to pick my top 5, and my parents would screen if it wasn't one of those top 5 schools.
So are you telling us you had more than 5 offers?
Yes.
Can you round it off to the nearest 10?
School-wise,
Yes.
what schools?
Yes. How many
The big
schools?
schools when I was swimming were Florida, Texas, Stanford, Arizona, and Michigan.
I didn't hear Tennessee in that.
At that time, they were not a big swimming school. They are now, but they weren't then. But then there were other schools that North Carolina, Clemson,
So
Auburn.
You got offers from all of them.
Yes, all the SEC schools offered me a scholarship. Even Vanderbilt offered me a scholarship.
So now, a lot of times you hear in sports, like swimming and baseball, even that they try to split those scholarships up.
Right.
They were offering you a full ride, right?
Yes.
That's because you were really good.
Yes. Nowadays, there's the lottery scholarship. And so it's easier for schools to divide the scholarships up, because if you have the grades, you'll get the lottery scholarship, and then they only have to provide you room and board. When I was in school, I had a full ride to the University of Florida.
Now, our viewers may not be aware of Dara Torres. Torres, what's her name?
Dara Torres.
She was very decorated.
Yes.
Swimmer. Somehow you guys met up with each other in high school.
I actually met Dara when I was 10 years old.
Where does she live?
Beverly Hills, California. And I lived in
world.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida, opposite sides of the country. We would travel to the swim meets, and she'd be the only one from her team, and I had a team full of people. And so her coach and my coach were friends. We swam the same event, so we stayed in the same room together.
Yeah. Did y'all make some kind of a bond that, it was Stanford, Texas,
in Florida? When we were high school seniors, we were talking behind the scenes. Like when a college coach from Texas would call me, I'd tell her what he told me, and she'd tell me, And so for me, it came down, I did not really want to go to school at Florida. I wanted to get out of the state of Florida, so I was leaning towards the University of Texas. But the college coach told her one thing and told me something different. And we were both getting full rides, so there shouldn't have been a difference. So for that reason, both of us went to the University of Florida.
Wow. And CJ, this is hard for you to believe, but this is before cell phones, before Twitter, and all this stuff. They were picking up the phone, cranking it up and calling each other. And did you get the Vanderbilt offer through text?
It was on FaceTime.
FaceTime?
Yeah.
And they changed coaches during that process?
Yeah, I got offered by Coach Derek Mason. And then after I committed, he got fired the next day or the day after. So.
And how did that settle down, and how did you go through that process and decide to stay with Vanderbilt?
I mean, it's not all about football. I mean, at a point when you're going through recruitment, a younger CJ would have probably been like, oh, I'm not going there because the coach got fired. But you're not committing to a coach, you're committing to a school. And I just felt like it's close to my mom, so my mom would come to all the games, or most of the games, and you can't beat you can't beat the Vanderbilt education. So.
And Paige and I can just come whenever we want, right? You want to get us in?
Yeah.
We got that on camera. Okay. Now, one thing about being an athlete, and CJ, I think this will be interesting. Paige, to be a swimmer, it's something called like developing your lungs, and you're not thinking of that when you're 9 years old.
No.
But tell us how much time you spent in the water from 9 years old to high school. What your daily routine was?
My schedule from when I was about 12 years old all the way through college and the Olympics, I worked out for about 7 hours a day. I would get up at 4:15 in the morning and drive 30 minutes over to the pool.
You mean your mom would take you?
My father would take me.
Your father.
My mom was a school teacher, so she had to be at school at 7. But my dad would take me. I would swim from 5 to 7. My school started at 7:45, so the hair went back in a ponytail, and off to school we went from the pool. My dad would take me. I'd be in school until 7, or from 7:45 until 2:45. I had to be back at the pool at 3:15. At that point, we either did an hour of running or an hour of dry land activity somewhere, somehow. We did a lot of running on the beach because where I grew up was right on Fort Lauderdale Beach. And then we would swim for another 3.5 hours. And then I would go home. My mom would already be home. She'd fix dinner. And then I'd do homework and go to bed and wake up the next day and do it all again.
I don't see any time there for
Nothing.
watching TV and hanging out with your friends in the neighborhood and going over to the mall, or
No.
you know.
That is one thing with swimming. there is not a lot of extra time once you are at that level. Your friends are your swimming friends. You know, I still have people today that I went to high school with and college with that I am still in contact with today.
So you spend a lot of time with those people.
You live, eat, and breathe with them. I mean, the guys see you at 5 a.m. with your hair all crazy and, you know, everything, and then they see you, you know, dressed up when you're going out somewhere.
Now, where were you when your classmates were at their senior prom?
I was at a swim meet
Where at?
in California.
Wow.
I did not go to prom. I did not go to homecoming, none of the dances, anything like that, because I always had a swim meet.
Wow. Now, CJ, high school athletes have to make a sacrifice.
Yep.
You're not out with your friends and, you know, whatever they're doing, playing Xbox video games in an afternoon, working endless hours to pay for big car payments or something, whatever they're doing, chasing Sally and, you know, Lucy around. Talk to us about the trade-off that you felt like being a high school athlete, especially being a two-sport athlete back to back. And did you feel isolated, or did you feel like you were giving up a lot?
No. Speaking of that, so Coach Turner, you know, he'd always tell me or tell some of the guys that played football for a while, you know, go out and recruit some of the linemen, some of the country guys that are, you know, big and strong. So their excuse would always be like, I got to work, I got to pay this, we don't have time, we like our summer. So I think I had a lot of time. I mean, we didn't know if we were going to play this year due to COVID. So I kind of slacked a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of slacked a little bit. My junior year was the year that I put in a lot of work. Me and Coach Bond, which is the defensive coordinator, we countless hours of working out. Coach Preston, footwork all the time. At one point, I was weighing 208. I weigh like 200 now. So countless hours my junior year. My senior year, it was, you know, kind of slacked a little bit because we didn't know if our season was going to get canceled or not.
Did you feel like, you know, until this season, you were on a losing football team?
Yes, sir.
You got a little bit of grief for being on a losing football team, right?
Yeah, that was why there was not a lot of people playing, because their excuse was, why lose our summer to play on a losing team? So.
Yeah, so like that sacrifice might not be so meaningful.
Yeah.
If you end up with a 2-8 season or whatever, right?
That's what their claim was.
But one thing that I can say, win, lose, or draw, one thing that sport teaches you is time management, self-discipline. You know, you have to prioritize what's more important in your life. You know, and yes, hanging out with your friends and stuff like that is an important part of your life. But one thing that swimming did for me and football has done for him is it's taken it to the next level. You know, he's now going to go play college ball. You know, I went and swam in college, and then I went to the Olympics. His ultimate goal, you know, will be college ball, and maybe it's the NFL. And how many people can you then turn back and look at and say, you know, hey, you know, I gave up this, but look where I am now. You know, and getting a college education given to you is priceless almost.
Yeah,
because a lot of people can't get that.
I don't think you'll ever, if you sacrifice things for sports or anything, if you sacrifice something for the bigger picture, is what you learn it'll matter.
Well, and CJ, starting with you, you mentioned some of your injuries.
Yeah.
Busted your shin.
Yeah.
Broke it in half.
Yeah.
Wow. Did they put a metal rod in there?
No, they did not. It was just, I think it was, I can't remember the surgery I had. It was going into my 6th straight year. Yeah. And then along the years, I had 2 knee surgeries, MPFL. That's the surgery. That's what it was called.
And how do you feel like going through those injuries? What motivated you to come back after that and do the work to rehab and condition yourself to play to be your best?
Well, first it was the doctor saying that he didn't think I would recover fast enough to play the next upcoming year, and then I mean, if you love the sport that you play, you have that urge to get back on the field or the swimming.
one of the secrets. If somebody tells you you can't do something,
Yeah.
if they're
I
going to
think-
score more points than you, or they're going to beat you, or they try to hurt you, you get a little motivated, right?
I think any competitive, if you
you
play,
find what you can.
yeah, any competitive player or person finds that urge when someone tells them they cannot do something.
Yeah. So Paige, you're swimming
Hmm.
from 9 on. I mean, what is it? Rotator cuff? What started wearing out? I mean, did your body ever get say, "Hey, man, you're hurting me here"?
No, I was lucky enough. I never had shoulder injuries. I did have an ACL tear my freshman year of college. I was riding my bike to school my very first day on campus, and I was hit by another bike, and my leg came backwards at me. And so I was sitting on the side of the road crying, and an athletic trainer just happened to come by and say, "Hey, are you a swimmer?" And I was like, "Yeah." You know, she said, "I recognized you from the media guide," and I tore my ACL. And so
Yeah.
in college sports, X amount of players have to go to a match. And so there were 3 of freshmen that year. We all had knee surgery. We all still competed with casts on our legs
In the water?
in the water.
Oh.
Because you have to take 18 athletes to the meet. So 18 athletes have to swim.
I'm still trying to visualize that part where Paige is crying.
Paige was crying.
That's something that we just don't see. So somehow you were injured your freshman year of college, and next year, maybe like almost 2 years, you're in the Olympics.
Right.
That's impressive.
Yes, well, like CJ said, when you're an athlete at a certain level, you are motivated to do certain things, and having an injury and coming back from it, when people say that you can't or, you're done, is the extra little motivation sometimes to make your inner self push a little harder.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, CJ, what made you decide? You maybe you've said this already, but how would you articulate and put in words that, you know what, I want it to be the best player on the field? And I will say this. There's been a few times in life where I'm sitting in person, maybe 1 or 2, and people talk about Brett Favre being able to slant the field to his advantage because of his competitive spirit and his ability. When did you start knowing you could do that, and what motivated you to do that?
When I started playing football, there was kind of my dad always told me that I was better than most people, and I don't know if that's the parenting way that you should go, but it kind of worked on me. So he'd push me and he'd push me and push me, and at a point I didn't need to be pushed anymore. It was just a habit. Like, it was a habit to train myself harder than other people would, or became a habit. And I seen all the sacrifices that my parents have taken and to give me the stuff that I need or to give me the stuff that I want. So it's not really a you have to do this. It's I want to do it.
Sometimes it's as simple as that. You know what? I'm going to get Coach Sullins to stop yelling at me, and I'm just going to bust it and get this done and show them I can do it.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes in the moment, the coach or an opposing player can say something, and what would you say is your natural ability plus the mental commitment that you have to being an athlete and training? You think you're just really gifted?
I think that I think that plays a part in talent, but the competitive spirit, the competitive nature that I have is it's the it factor.
That's what Vanderbilt's football coach now, Clark Lee, quoted saying about you, is that CJ's just a competitor, and the stand we ran some comments by people, and I think it was Kevin Burnett who said, "I don't care if it's basket weaving, CJ's going to win that." It's like I hear stories like at the video games, you won't quit until you win.
If you beat me, you're playing me again.
And Paige, swimming. Like CJ's taking it man to man, even though it's a team sport at times.
Mm-hmm.
Really, most of your career was, you're on a team, but it's you in the water against one other those other 7 to 8 swimmers, right? What made you say, you know what, I think I'm better than them, and I'm going to keep pushing myself, and I'm going to win? What made it become, it wasn't recreational anymore, it wasn't for fun, it's that I'm just going to win, I'm going to beat these girls, I'm going to win?
There is something inside, and CJ can probably agree, there is something inside of you that, whether you're told by your parents growing up, because I was told the same as CJ, you're better, you can do this, you can do that, you begin to believe that about yourself, and there's an inner drive where you want to be the best at whatever you do. And one thing that swimming has done for me, and I'll just say sport in general because it will eventually do it for CJ as well, is my life now is really a piece of cake, or whatever, to quote Rowdy Gaines, who was, a swimming phenomenon himself, because swimming, it made me trust in myself, it made me believe in myself, it made me know that I have this inner drive to where whatever I do, whether it is, running the gym or running, a half marathon or swimming, I'm gonna bust my butt and do the absolute best that I can, and by golly, you're gonna pay hell trying to catch me,
You're
or
pretty
beat
confident
me.
you can beat me in any sport, right?
I'm very confident I can beat you in any sport.
Yes, I'm quite familiar with that. But it's a distinction that these athletes who have really thrived and done well, competed at the highest level. It's like being a 4-star admiral or 4-star general.
Yeah.
You're in rare air, and not too many people get there. And
Right.
It's something you want to stay there.
Right.
You want to keep doing that in whatever you're doing. And,
Sure.
CJ, we can go with you first, or Paige. I want you all, at this point, if you have a question you want to ask each other, if you're curious about, anything. Paige, CJ or Paige, do you have a question for each other?
You want to go first?
I'll ask you, what out of all of your athletic career so far has been your favorite game, and why?
That's tough. It comes down to the Blackman game or probably the East Hamilton game, which recently happened.
Right.
Uh,
And why? What made it extra special? What gave you the drive or the motivation to push extra hard in that?
Yeah, I got to go with the East Hamilton game. So I don't know if people knew that I knew that we haven't been there in 45 years, which was a sectional game that we got to this year. And so that pushed me a little harder. And going into high school, people told me to get out of Warren County because people don't make it out of Warren County when it comes to sports. So I pushed myself a little bit harder, and I ended up getting the Vanderbilt offer. And relating to that game, there was a guy that was talking a lot of smack to me and saying that I wasn't Mr. Basketball, and which granted I'm not, but it just pushed me a little harder because that's the competitive inside of me.
And you proved it in that game,
Yeah, so that's why I was
scoring 20 some odd points in the last.
Yeah, so that's probably why that was the most.
He actually made a 3-point shot to tie the game to send it into overtime when he was off balance because he'd been pushed. To replicate that would be almost,
Right.
It's exceptional.
Yeah.
Very few people can pull that off, and we're with one of those guys right now.
So a question that I have, I don't know if you have an answer to it. Who was the person that pushed you the hardest in your career? Like, who was that one person that made you look in the mirror and say, I'm not doing enough, or I need to do better?
Good question. My parents were very supportive, and they were always 100% behind me in whatever I did. And they did push me to do this or do that. My coaches were also very, very motivating. My coach was actually an Olympic swimmer himself. And so I had that to look to for guidance. But a lot of it, I want to say, probably came from in here. It came from inside. That drive. And it's hard to explain to people like what it is and what pushes an athlete to go beyond or to, do the extra. But, it's something in here.
I got one last question, and recently, and CJ, it was after the Cleveland game. I had to go home and I had to wash my brain, get over that loss,
Yeah, it was pretty
and
bad.
seeing what's going to happen next. And I came across a quote from Michael Jordan, which I believe it's his. He said, "Look, I'm failed hundreds of times, but I never thought I was going to fail." Does that make sense to you, Paige?
Yeah, I don't never think I went into a game saying, "Man, we're gonna lose,"
Right.
or "Man, I'm
So-
not gonna play good."
So you never went into a swim meet saying, somebody out there is going to beat me.
No, you mentioned Dara Torres, and she, there was just a big SEC story on her on SEC, the
Network.
SEC Network. But anyways, she was and is still my best friend, and she and I swam the same events, and I never went into a race with her thinking I'm going to lose to her. Some races I won, some races she won. But I never went into a race thinking that, oh God,
Do you have any final comments about, hey, it's possible for anybody watching, if you're a kid, if you're raising a kid, if you're a grandparent, what should you say to that kid that you think wants to excel at a sport? What should you tell the kid?
Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't do something, and if you don't want to get yelled at in a sport, just do it. Just do something that you know that your coach would want you to do. Don't make them have to tell you to do something twice, and just dig deep and be you.
very well
Okay.
said. I would also add to that is always, it has to be fun. Always make it fun. It has to be, you have to want to do it. You have to want to be there, and everything that he said sums it all up.
Well, really appreciate you all taking the time to come in and do this. It's super interesting. It's a learning experience for me, and I can tell you this. I know Paige a lot better than I do CJ, but that competitive spirit, it's there almost 24/7.
Yeah.
And it's hard to turn off. And it makes you drive and do yourself that other people, like Paige, will get hurt and do things I notice nobody else will do.
I don't think you can turn it off. I think it's
can't.
always on.
Yeah, it is. It is inside.
It's a great thing to have. And thanks
Yeah.
for taking the time to share it with us on Southern Standard on Sports.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.